The emergency alarm echoed through the Galactic Council chamber for the first time in 40 years. Counselor Yara spread her blue-feathered wings in agitation as she watched the other council members file into the vast circular room. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. Ambassador Minjin from Earth had missed his scheduled contact. That had never happened before, not once in 4 decades of human membership in the D's. Council Thalrax clicked his mandibles dismissively as he settled into his hovering seat. The insectoid counselor had never liked the humans. Perhaps the ambassador simply overslept. Thalrax buzzed, his compound eyes reflecting the chamber's lights. Humans are notoriously unreliable creatures. Yara's crest feathers flattened against her skull, a sign of disapproval among her species. Minjun has never missed a scheduled transmission, she said, her voice sharp. Not in 40 years of service. Then perhaps he is ill. Another counselor suggested. We checked, Yara continued, pulling up a holographic display. All Earth communication channels are completely dark. No transmissions, no broadcasts, no responses to our hails. The chamber fell silent. Counselor Zormath An's amphibious skin shifted from blue to a concerned purple. How long has this been occurring? He asked. 72 hours, Yara replied. At first we thought it was a technical malfunction, but have they sent any distress signals? Someone interrupted. Nothing, Yara said quietly. It is as if the entire planet simply stopped talking. Thalrax waved a clawed appendage dismissively. Probably destroyed themselves, he said. We always knew letting them develop nuclear technology was a risk. They likely had another war and wiped out their civilization. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Humans were known for their violent history, perhaps. Thalrax was right. I propose we send a probe to investigate, Yara said, overriding the chatter. The vote passed unanimously 1 week later. The probe returned, or rather, what was left of it, destroyed at the edge of the Sol system, the technician reported, displaying the fragmented remains. Automated defense systems eliminated it the moment it crossed the boundary. Automated defenses? Zormath's skin turned a deep orange. If humanity destroyed itself, why would defensive systems still be operational? No one had an answer. A diplomatic ship was dispatched next. It made it closer all the way to the outer planets before being intercepted. Captain Jaehoon of the Crimson Tide reported back with confusion in his voice. We were turned away by unmanned stations, he said via transmission. No live crew. Just automated systems. They sent us a message. What did it say? Yara demanded. Do not approach. Quarantine protocols active. Jaehoon read from his display, his Korean accent thick with worry. When we asked for clarification, the stations aimed weapons at us. We retreated. Quarantine? Several counselors echoed. What kind of quarantine requires a weapons lockout? Zormath asked, suspicion creeping into his tone as weeks turned into a month. The silence from Earth became more troubling. Human colonies throughout the galaxy had also gone dark. Trade routes that depended on human mined rare metals collapsed. The economic disruption rippled across dozens of systems. Trade guild representatives flooded the council with complaints. 40% of our rare metal supply comes from human operations, one guildmaster shouted during a public session. We have industries failing, construction projects halted. Where are the humans? In a small apartment overlooking the council station's main plaza, Ji-woo sat staring at her communication console. The junior human diplomat had been stranded here when Earth went silent. Her last message from home had been routine, a brief call with her sister about their mother's birthday. Nothing to suggest what was coming. Now she faced increasing hostility everywhere she went. Other species blamed humanity for the economic chaos. Some whispered that Earth had finally revealed its true nature, abandoning its obligations to the galaxy. Ji Woo knew. Better humans didn't just disappear, they were too stubborn. Too persistent. Something else was happening. A knock on her door made her jump. She opened it to find Kex standing there. The reptilian trader's scales gleaming under the corridor lights. "We need to talk," he hissed quietly. Glancing around. Not here, somewhere private. They met in one of the station's cargo bays. Surrounded by containers marked with various alien scripts. "They are blaming your people for everything," Kex said without preamble. "The economic disruption. The uncertainty. Some council members are calling it sabotage. That's insane." Ji Woo protested. "We don't even know what happened." "Doesn't matter," Kex replied, his forked tongue flicking out nervously. "Fear makes people irrational. They need someone to blame. What have you heard?" Ji Woo asked. Kex hesitated, then pulled out a data chip. "Off the record?" "Yes," she nodded. "Councillor Zormeth is proposing military intervention," Kex said. "He's arguing that humanity holds too much strategic territory to be allowed to go dark, as he puts it." Ji Woo felt her blood run cold. "They want to invade Earth?" she whispered. "They are calling it an investigation," Kex corrected. "But yes, a military fleet Dassault system to determine what happened and secure human assets. That's a declaration of war," Ji Woo said. "Is it?" Kex challenged. "If your people are all dead from some plague or war, who would they be fighting?" The question hung in the air. Ji Woo's hands trembled as she processed what this meant. "When?" She managed to ask. "The vote is scheduled for tomorrow," Kex said, placing a clawed hand on her shoulder. "I'm sorry, I thought you should know." That night, Ji Woo composed an encrypted message using every security protocol she knew. It was probably pointless if Earth's communication systems were truly down. No one would receive it, but she had to try. "Earth. This is Ji Woo broadcasting from Council Station," she typed, her fingers flying across the keyboard. "Please respond. They are coming with a fleet. Military intervention authorized. Please answer. Please be okay." She hit send and watched the message disappear into the void. No response came. The next day, the council chamber was packed. The vote took less than an hour. 47 in favor of sending an investigation fleet, while the post-councillor Zormath stood before the assembly, his skin rippling with satisfaction. "We will assemble a fleet of 200 warships," he announced. "This will be the largest peacetime military action in 200 years. But the situation demands it. What if humanity resists?" Someone called out. Zormath's mouth curved into what might have been a smile among his species. "With what?" he asked. "Human ships are scrappy, at best outdated frigates and converted cargo vessels, against 200 council warships. They would have no choice but to cooperate." Murmurs of agreement filled the chamber. Yara remained silent, her feathers tight against her body. Something felt wrong about all of this, but she had been outvoted in the observation deck, overlooking the station's docking bay. Admiral Yan Su watched the fleet begin to assemble. The retired human officer had been living quietly on the trade station for years, enjoying her pension and staying out of politics, but now she stood with her arms crossed, watching warship after warship arrive. Kex found her there an hour later. "Impressive sight," the trader commented. "Impressive stupidity," Yan Su replied quietly. Kex's head tilted in confusion. "You think humanity will fight?" he asked. The old admiral's weathered face remained neutral, but her eyes held something Kex couldn't quite identify. "I think," she said slowly, "that the council is making a very large mistake." "Why?" Kex pressed. Yan Su turned to face him fully. "Because humans don't go silent from weakness," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "We go silent when we are preparing for something." Before Kex could respond, she walked away, leaving him alone with the growing fleet. 3 days later, Commander Thalix led the investigation fleet out of council space. The Feline Commander was a decorated veteran with decades of experience. He had fought in border skirmishes, pirate suppression campaigns, and peacekeeping operations. This assignment seemed straightforward by comparison. Check on Earth. Determine what happened. Secure human assets if necessary. Simple, as his flagship jumped into hyperspace, followed by 199 other warships. Felix reviewed the intelligence reports on human military capability. It made for underwhelming. Reading humans had perhaps 300 ships scattered across their territories. Most were civilian vessels with minimal armament. Their actual military consisted of aging frigates and destroyers effective enough for patrol duty, but no match for Council dreadnoughts. This will be over before it begins. His B's second in command purred confident with. Wasn't so sure. Something about this entire situation bothered. Inhumans were many things: stubborn, resourceful, adaptable, but they weren't suicidal, going dark without explanation, cutting off all communication, activating defensive protocols. It didn't fit the pattern of a civilization and collapse. It fit the pattern of a civilization preparing for something. But preparing for what? He would find out soon enough. The fleet was 3 days from Sol System. The Council investigation fleet cut through hyperspace like a blade through silk. 200 warships representing dozens of species, all united under one purpose: find out what happened to humanity. Commander Felix stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Sovereign Justice, watching the star maps update with each jump. His crew worked efficiently around him, their confidence evident in every movement. Estimated time to Sol System, he asked. 48 hours at current speed. His navigation officer reported. Thykes' tail swished thoughtfully. 48 hours until they had answers around him. Other vessels maintained perfect formation: cruisers, destroyers, even 3 massive dreadnoughts that dwarfed the rest of the fleet. Councillor Zormath had insisted on the dreadnoughts. Show of force, he had said. Humans need to understand we mean business. Felix had his doubts about the necessity, but orders were orders. The first sign that something was off came at the edge of human-controlled space. A monitoring station floated in the void, its lights active and systems running. Sir, we are detecting the automated station, the sensor officer called out. All systems functional, but what? Felix prompted. No life signs, the officer replied, her antennae quivering. The station is fully operational, but completely unmanned. Felix approached the sensor console. The readings were clear, power flowing. Weapons armed, sensors tracking, all automated. Hail the station. He ordered. A transmission returned almost immediately. It was a recording. Played on a loop. Turn back. Final warning: quarantine zone unauthorized. Entry will be met with defensive action. Turn back. Final warning. The message repeated endlessly. Should we proceed, Commander? His second Asked, Felix studied the station. Its weapons were tracking their fleet, following their movements with mechanical precision. Whatever had happened to humanity, their automated defenses remained active and alert. Continue forward, he decided, but raise shields. Full defensive posture. They passed the station without incident, though its weapons followed them the entire way. More stations appeared as they pressed deeper into human space, all the same: active, armed, unmanned, all broadcasting the same warning. Counselor Zormath's voice crackled over the fleet-wide channel from his position aboard one of the dreadnoughts. These warnings are clearly a bluff, he announced. Automated systems trying to scare us away. Ignore them and proceed. Felix wanted to argue but held his tongue. The counselor technically outranked him on this mission still. His instincts screamed that something wasn't right. Commander, we are approaching Proxima Station, the navigation officer reported. Human mining colony. Population usually around 5,000. Finally, Zormath's voice cut in again. We will get some answers. Prepare boarding teams. The fleet dropped out of hyperspace near the Colony Proxima station, hung in orbit around a rust-colored planet. Its lights blazing against the darkness. At first glance, it looked normal. Life signs? Thelix asked. The sensor officer's face fell. None, Commander, she said quietly. The station is completely empty. They sent teams aboard anyway. Thelix accompanied them. Needing to see with his own eyes, the station was pristine, power running, air circulating, gravity functioning, but not a single soul remained in the mess hall. Food sat in refrigerators. Still fresh personal quarters contained belongings, photos, clothes, small trinkets. It is like everyone just vanished. One of the boarding team whispered. No, Felix corrected. Examining a cabinet, they left in an orderly fashion. See how everything is organized. Nothing is ransacked or abandoned in panic. Then where did they go? Someone escaped. Felix had no answer. They found it in the mess hall. Scrawled on a whiteboard in hasty human script. They called us home, we answered. The words sent a chill down Felix's spine. What does that mean? His second demanded. Called them home? It means this was not evacuation from disaster, Talek said slowly, realization dawning. This was systematic recall. Every human from every outpost called back to Earth. Why? Someone asked. That was the question that haunted Thelix as they left the empty station. Why would humanity recall everyone? Why go completely silent? Why maintain automated defenses if they were in distress? The fleet pressed onward toward Sol. They encountered 3 more human colonies, all the same, evacuated cleanly. Possessions left behind. No signs of panic or struggle at one station. They found mining equipment had been carefully dismantled and removed at another. Research data had been systematically deleted from all computers. They took everything of value and erased everything sensitive. Talix observed. This was planned. Months of planning. Plan for what? His second asked in frustration. I wish I knew. Thelix admitted as they approached the outer Sol system. The sensor readings became increasingly strange. Commander, I am picking up massive energy signatures near Jupiter, the sensor officer reported, her voice uncertain. Thousands of discrete objects, possibly stations or what? Thelix demanded. Or ships, sir, she said. But the readings are far larger than any human vessels on record. How much larger? 10 times? 20? The officer shook her head. Sir, I have never seen energy signatures like these. The fleet slowed as they processed this information. Counselor Zormath's image appeared on the view screen. His skin flushed with anger. Why are we stopping? He demanded. Unknown contacts ahead, Thelix reported. Large numbers, possibly military in nature. Possibly? Zormath scoffed. We have 200 warships. Whatever ragtag force humanity assembled will not be a threat. Proceed. Against his better judgment, Thelix ordered the fleet forward. They attempted to hail Earth once, twice, 3 times. Nothing but silence greeted them. Then, just as Thelix was about to order another attempt, a transmission came through a human voice. Male, speaking with calm authority. Council fleet, you have entered sovereign human space during declared emergency. You will withdraw immediately or be considered hostile. Thelix recognized military bearing. When he heard it, this was no civilian administrator. This was a soldiers or mass transmission overrode. Thelix's response. This is Counselor Zormath of the Galactic Council, the amphibian announced pompously. We represent the highest authority in this region of space. You will stand down and explain your planet's silence immediately. A long pause followed. Thelix counted the seconds. 5, 10, 15. The human voice returned. Colder now. So be it, the voice said simply. You were warned. The transmission cut off. Sir, the sensor officer shouted. Contacts emerging from behind Mars. Multiple signatures. Hundreds, no thousands. The view screen adjusted automatically. and Thilix felt his blood turn to ice. The fleet emerged around Mars like a swarm of insects, but these were no insects. These were warships massive. Gleaming vessels that made Council dreadnoughts look like children's toys. Their hulls reflected the distant sun, showing sleek designs that spoke of speed and power. How many? Thilix whispered. I am reading. The sensor officer's voice cracked. Sir, I am reading over 2,000 contacts, all warships, all human. Impossible humanity had barely 300 ships in its entire fleet. Where had these come from? The sensor displays lit up with new information orbital structures around Earth, massive shipyards that hadn't existed 6 months ago, construction facilities on the moon converted entirely to military production, Jupiter's moons weaponized, every single one. The asteroid belt militarized into a defensive network. What have they built? Thilix breathed. His second-in-command had lost all color in his face. Sir, we need to withdraw, he urged. We are completely outnumbered. Before Thilix could respond, the human fleet activated power signatures spiked across the board as thousands of ships came to full combat readiness. Weapon systems charged, shields, energized engines flared to life. Council fleet of 200 suddenly seemed very small. A new transmission arrived. Council fleet. This is Admiral Seo Yan of the Earth Defense Forces, a woman's voice announced. Professional and utterly devoid of emotion. You were given multiple warnings. You ignored them all. I am Commander Thilix, he managed to say. Finding his voice, we came to investigate. You came with 200 warships. Admiral Seo Yan interrupted. That is not investigation, that is intimidation. We meant no hostility. Thilix protested. Did you not? The Admiral's voice held a sharp edge. You entered our space uninvited, ignored our warnings, and brought a military fleet. What would you call that? Councilor Zormuth pushed onto the channel again. We represent the Galactic Council. He shouted, You cannot threaten us. We are the law in this region. Were. Admiral Seo Yan corrected coldly. Past tense. You dare, Zormuth began. I dare quite a lot, Counselor. The Admiral cut him off. I recommend you surrender your fleet and withdraw peacefully. Surrender? Zormuth's skin turned nearly black with rage. We outnumber. You are surrounded by 2,000 warships, each one more advanced than anything in your fleet. The Admiral stated matter-of-factly. You are outgunned, outmaneuvered, and out of options. So yes, Counselor, surrender. Thilix looked at his tactical display. The human fleet had positioned itself in a perfect sphere around the Council forces. Every angle covered, every escape route blocked. They hadn't just been waiting, they had been ready. Counselor, Thilix said quietly on a private channel. She is right. We cannot win this. We are the Council. Zormuth snarled back. We do not surrender to what? Thilix challenged. To humans who built this fleet in 6 months? To a species we clearly underestimated. Sir. Silence filled the Council fleet. 200 warships floated helplessly in space, their weapon systems smoking ruins, while everything else remained perfectly functional. Commander Thilix stared at his tactical display in stunned disbelief. The human fleet surrounded them completely, a sphere of overwhelming force that could have annihilated them in seconds. Instead, the humans had delivered a message: we could destroy you. But we choose not to. Counselor Zormuth's image flickered onto every screen in the fleet, his amphibious skin mottled with rage and humiliation. This is an act of war, he sputtered. Admiral Seo Yan's response came calm and measured. No, Counselor, she said. This is an act of mercy. You brought warships to intimidate us, and we simply showed you that intimidation works both ways. The main view screen on Thilix's ZO shifted to show the human admiral. She appeared to be in her 50s by human standards, with short gray hair, and eyes that held no anger, only cold determination behind her. The bridge of her flagship hummed with activity. "I am formally demanding your fleet withdraw from Sol System immediately," Admiral Saoyan continued. "You have 1 hour to begin your departure. We came for answers." Zormath protested. "The Council demands to know why Earth went silent." "The Council demands?" The Admiral repeated, and now there was ice in her voice. "Let me tell you what Earth demands," she gestured. And the view screen split to show President Park. The human leader sat behind a simple desk. Her hands folded calmly in front of her. "Counselor Zormath," President Park began, her Korean accent precise and clear. "6 months ago, the Council passed the Resource Regulation Act. Do you remember?" Zormath's skin shifted to a wary purple. There was standard economic legislation. It was an attempt to seize control of human mining operations. President Park interrupted, her voice never rising. "Our analysts examined the fine print, the hidden clauses, the provisions buried in legal language." She pulled up a document on her screen. Section 47. Subsection 12. She read, "In cases where resource extraction operations are deemed essential to galactic stability, the Council reserves the right to assume direct management." That is fancy language for theft. "That is not," Zormath began. "We also found your military contingency plans," President Park continued. As if he hadn't spoken, the screen changed to show classified Council documents. Thalix recognized them immediately. Internal military planning files that should have been secure. How had the humans obtained them? "Operation Human Containment," President Park read aloud. "Plans for orbital bombardment of Earth's major population centers if humanity became," and I quote, "problematic to Council interests." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Thalix felt his stomach drop. He had never been privy to such plans. Most military commanders hadn't been. This was beyond normal contingency planning. This was preparation for genocide. "You plan to kill billions of us," President Park said, her voice finally showing emotion, a quiet, cold fury. "Because we might become inconvenient to your economic interests." Those were theoretical scenarios, Zormath protested, never meant to be implemented. "But they existed," Admiral Saoyan interjected. "And once we found them, we realized something important. We could never be safe while the Council saw us as subjects rather than equals." President Park leaned forward. "So we went silent," she said simply. The view screen shifted again, this time showing imagery from 6 months earlier's government chambers, filled with leaders from every nation. The emergency session that had changed everything. "We called every human home," President Park explained. "Every scientist, every engineer, every soldier, every miner, we brought them all back to Sol System." The images showed massive transport fleets, millions of humans evacuating outposts and colonies throughout the galaxy. "We told them the truth," President Park continued, "that the Council saw us as useful laborers, not partners, that they had plans to eliminate us if we ever stood up for ourselves. And they came," Admiral Saoyan added. "Every single one, because humans understand something about survival that you never learned." "What is that?" Felix asked quietly, genuine curiosity in his voice. Admiral's expression softened slightly when she looked at him instead of Zormath. "That sometimes you have to choose between being comfortable and being safe," she said. "The Council offered us comfort jobs, trade, a place in the galactic community, but never safety, never equality." The screen showed what happened next. Earth's orbital space transforming massive. Construction projects that repurposed every available resource, shipyards expanding at impossible speeds. "We spent 6 months building," President Park said, "every human working toward one goal, making sure we could never be threatened again." The images showed assembly lines producing ships at incredible rates designs that didn't match anything in Council databases. Your intelligence files said we had 300 ships. Admiral Co. Yeon noted with grim satisfaction. You were right 6 months ago. We had 300 obsolete frigates. She gestured at the fleet surrounding them. Now we have over 2,000 modern warships, with more being completed every day. Impossible. Zormith shouted, no species can build that fast. You never bothered to learn what humans can do when we are properly motivated, the Admiral replied. You saw us as miners and laborers. You never asked what our engineers could accomplish if we pooled our knowledge and resources. President Park stood from her desk. We developed fusion drives that make your ships look like relics, she said. Gravitic shields your weapons cannot penetrate. Kinetic bombardment systems that can crack a moon. We had the technology all along. Counselor, we just never showed you. Why? Thelix asked, the question escaping before he could stop himself. Why hide your capabilities? Admiral Seo Yeon smiled sadly. Because we hoped we would never need them, she said. We wanted peace, Commander, we genuinely did. We joined the Council in good faith, believing we could be partners. But you planned to enslave us, President Park finished. So we prepared for war instead. Counselor Zormith had lost all color in his skin. Implications were sinking in. The rest of the Council will never accept this, he declared, trying to salvage some authority. They will send more fleets, bigger fleets. Will they? Admiral Seoyeon asked. Let us find out. She nodded to someone off-screen. And a new transmission began broadcasting not just to the Council fleet, not just to Council space, to the entire galaxy. Attention all species, governments and independent entities. President Park's voice carried across countless star systems. This is President Park of the United Earth Government. I am addressing you to explain why humanity went silent 6 months ago, over the next 10 minutes. She laid it all out: the Resource Regulation Act, the orbital bombardment plans, the decision to evacuate and prepare the massive fleet construction. Everything. We are not your enemies, President Park concluded. But we are no longer your servants either. Earth and all human-controlled systems are hereby declaring independence from the Galactic Council. We will trade with those who offer fair terms. We will ally with those who treat us as equals. But we will submit to no one ever again. The transmission ended in its wake. Silence Thelix could imagine. The chaos erupting across the Galaxy Council. Representatives scrambling trade guilds. Panicking military commanders reassessing everything they thought they knew about. Humanity, you have fractured the Council, Zormath said, his voice hollow. No, Admiral Seo Yeon corrected. We have forced the Council to confront what it was becoming, an empire disguised as a democracy. She turned her attention back to the fleet. Commander Thelix, she addressed him directly. I am going to trust you to deliver a message. Can you do that? I can, Thelix replied, ignoring Zormath's glare. Tell the Council that Earth is not interested in conquest, the Admiral said. We do not want their territory or their resources. We simply want to be left alone to govern ourselves. And if they refuse? Thelix asked. Admiral Seo Yeon's expression hardened. Then they will find that the fleet you see around you is merely our defensive force, she said. We have been building for 6 months. Commander, imagine what we could do in 6 years. The threat was clear. If the Council pushed this to war, they would lose badly. My fleet will escort yours to the edge of our system, the Admiral continued. You will see what we built, what we are capable of, and you will report it accurately to the Council. Why show us everything? Thelix asked. Why not hide your full capabilities? Because we want you to understand, Admiral Seo Yeon replied. This is not a bluff. This is not posturing. This is humanity drawing a line and daring anyone to cross it. Captain Hyanwu appeared on screen next to the Admiral, the same voice that had warned them at the system's edge. "We will begin the escort now," he said, his expression serious. "Please do not deviate from the designated course. Our automated defenses are very enthusiastic about their jobs." The human fleet began to move council ships, found themselves gently but firmly herded toward the system's edge as they traveled. Felix watched in growing amazement massive orbital shipyards around Earth, each one capable of producing a dreadnought-sized vessel every week. The moon, its surface covered in manufacturing facilities and weapons emplacements. Mars, transformed into a military command center with defensive satellites, outnumbering stars in the sky. Jupiter's moons, everyone turned into weapons platforms. The asteroid belt, mined and militarized. The Galactic Council chamber had descended into chaos. Counselors shouted over each other, their voices creating a cacophony of panic and rage that echoed through the vast circular room. Commander Felix stood before them, his report complete, waiting for the storm to pass. It didn't. 2,000 warships. Someone screamed. Built in 6 months. The economy is collapsing. Another voice cried out. Human trade has stopped completely. We have industries failing across 17 systems. Councillor Yar tried to restore order. Her wings spread wide as she activated the chamber's amplification system. "Please." A voice boomed over the chaos. "We must approach this rationally." Rationally? Thalrax buzzed, his mandibles clicking furiously. Humanity has committed an act of war. There is nothing rational about surrender. We did not surrender. Councillor Zormath protested from his seat, though his skin remained a sickly gray color. We made a tactical withdrawal. You ran, someone called from the back benches. You brought 200 ships and came back with your tail between your legs. More shouting erupted. Felix caught Yara's eye, and she nodded. Understanding the council needed to see what he had seen. If I may, Felix said, his voice cutting through the noise with military authority. The chamber quieted somewhat. I have compiled sensor data from our encounter, he continued, pulling up holographic displays. I recommend you review it before making any decisions. The images spoke for themselves. Earth's massive orbital construction, the weaponized lunar surface Jupiters, fortified moons, the militarized asteroid belt 2,000 warships that made council. Vessels look like antique. Silence fell as the counselors absorbed what they were seeing. This cannot be real, someone whispered. I witnessed it personally, Felix replied. Every image is verified by multiple sensor sweeps from different ships. This is what humanity built while we thought they were dying or fighting among themselves. How? Thalrax demanded. How does a species build this much in 6 months? Because they called everyone home, Felix explained. Every engineer, every scientist, every skilled worker from across the galaxy. They pooled their knowledge and resources toward a single goal. What goal? Someone asked. Conquest? No, Felix said firmly. Defense. Everything they built is designed to protect their territory, not invade ours. You believe them? Zormath scoffed. I believe what I saw, Felix replied, meeting the counselor's gaze. They disabled our weapons without destroying our ships. They could have killed us all, but chose restraint. That is not the action of a conquering species. Yara stepped forward. We need to address the economic situation immediately, she said. Without human rare metal exports, we have critical shortages. Developing medical equipment production is down 60%. Shipbuilding has halted in 4 systems, and agricultural equipment. Agricultural equipment? Someone interrupted. Human-designed tractors and irrigation systems, Yara explained. 17 farming worlds depend on human technology without replacement parts and maintenance. They are facing potential famine within 2 growing seasons. The implications settled over the Chamber like a shroud humanity hadn't just been miners and laborers. They had been integral to the entire galactic economy. They planned this, Thalrak said accusingly. They made themselves indispensable, then used it as leverage. No. A new voice spoke up. All eyes turned to Ji Wu, the junior human diplomat, standing in the observers section. You do not have permission to speak. Thalrax buzzed angrily. Let her speak. Yara overruled him. Ji Wu stepped forward, her hands trembling slightly, but her voice steady. Humans did not make themselves indispensable as some kind of scheme, she said. We integrated into galactic society because we genuinely wanted to be part of it. We shared our technology freely. We worked hard. We tried to be good neighbors. She pulled up her own data display. But while we were doing that, you were planning contingencies for our extinction, Ji Wu continued, showing the classified documents President Park had revealed. Operation Human Containment, Orbital Bombardment Protocols, Resource Seizure Plans. Those were theoretical. Zormath protested. They were genocidal. Ji Wu shot back, her composure cracking. You had plans to kill billions of my people if we became inconvenient. The chamber fell silent. Several counselors who hadn't known about the plans looked horrified. The Resource Regulation Act. Ji Wu continued, pulling up the legislation. Section 47 allows the Council to cease human operations if deemed essential to galactic stability. You were going to take everything we built and reduce us to slave labor. That is not what someone began. That is exactly what it means. Ji Wu's voice rose. We saw through the legal language. We understood what you were planning, and we chose to leave before you could implement it. Counselor Yara's feathers drooped. I voted against that act, she said quietly. But I was outvoted by people like him. Ji Wu pointed at Zormath, who saw humanity as a resource to be managed, not partners to be respected. The silence that followed was heavy with implication. Shillix watched as counselors began to truly understand what had happened. They hadn't lost Earth to some disaster or internal conflict. They had driven humanity away through their own arrogance and greed. A communication alert interrupted the tense atmosphere. Incoming transmission. The chamber's SI announced, from Earth. Marked urgent. Display it. Yara ordered. President Park appeared on the massive view screen. Seated at the same simple desk as before, members of the Galactic Council, she began formally. I am transmitting Earth's official terms for future relations. A document appeared alongside her image. First, President Park read, all human systems, colonies, and territories are hereby recognized as independent sovereign entities. We are withdrawing from Council membership effective immediately. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Second, the Resource Regulation Act is to be formally repealed and all similar legislation prohibited. Third, any species wishing to maintain trade relations with human territories must offer terms of mutual benefit. We will no longer accept exploitative contracts. Fourth, and here Park's voice grew harder. Reparations for 40 years of economic exploitation. Our economists calculate the Council underpaid for human resources by approximately 30% below fair market value. We demand compensation. This is extortion. Thalrax buzzed. President Park's expression didn't change. No, Counselor, she said. This is accounting. We have documentation for every trade agreement, every contract, every shipment. Our calculations are public record, available for independent verification. She paused, letting that sink in. You have 30 days to respond to these terms, Park continued. If the Council agrees, we will resume limited trade and maintain peaceful relations. If the Council refuses, Earth will close all borders permanently. You cannot survive without galactic trade. Zormath protested. Cannot we? Park asked. We have been preparing for exactly that scenario. Counselor, we are more self-sufficient than you realize, but can the council survive without human goods? The question hung in the air. Everyone in the chamber knew the answer. Without human rare metals, human agricultural technology, human engineering expertise, the galactic economy would face collapse. This is blackmail. Someone shouted, "This is negotiation." Park corrected calmly. Something the council should have engaged in honestly from the beginning. You have 30 days. Choose wisely. The transmission ended for several long moments. Nobody spoke, then the chamber erupted again. We cannot accept these terms. We have no choice. This sets a terrible precedent. We created this situation ourselves. Councillor Yara raised her wings again. Calling for silence, we need to vote, she said. But first, we need to acknowledge some truths. She turned to face the full assembly. We treated humanity as junior members of our community. Yara said, we benefited from their labor while keeping them at arm's length from real power. We wrote laws to control them while telling ourselves it was for the greater good. They were too primitive to be full members. Thalrax protested, were they? Yara challenged. They built a fleet of 2,000 advanced warships in 6 months. Does that sound primitive to you? She gestured at the sensor data still displayed. We underestimated them because we wanted to, Yara continued. Because it was profitable to have a species willing to do the difficult, dangerous work of mining and engineering while we maintained our comfortable positions. So what do you propose? Someone asked. I propose we accept Earth's terms, Yara said firmly. The chamber exploded with protests. Accept? Zormeth's skin flushed dark purple. You want us to surrender? I want us to survive, Yara replied. And more than that, I want us to do the right thing. Humanity deserves independence and fair treatment. We should have offered it decades ago. They are dictating terms to us. Thalrax buzzed. Because we left them no choice, Yara said. We wrote laws to enslave them. What did we expect would happen? A smaller counselor stood, one who had remained quiet until now. I move that we accept Earth's terms in full, he said, and that we formally apologize for our past treatment of humanity. Second, another counselor agreed. This is madness. Zormeth protested. You are giving them everything they want. We are giving them what they deserve, Yara corrected. What we should have given them from the start: respect, equality, and fair compensation. The debate raged for hours, but slowly the tide turned. 30 days passed in a blur of diplomatic activity. The Galactic Council chamber had transformed from a place of chaos to one of careful negotiation. Counselor Yara stood at the central podium, her blue feathers gleaming under the chamber's lights as she prepared to make history. The vote is concluded, she announced, her voice carrying to every corner of the vast room. The Council formally recognizes the independence of all human territories and accepts Earth's terms in full. The final count displayed above her. 89 in favor. 8 opposed. A small group of hardliners led by Zormeth had already departed, refusing to participate in what they called capitulation, but they were in the minority. The galaxy had changed, and most understood that change was necessary. Ji Woo sat in the human delegation section, hardly believing what she was witnessing. 40 years of second-class status ending with a single vote. Her hands trembled as she transmitted the results back to Earth President. Park's response came within minutes. Acknowledged, the message read. I am dispatching our chief negotiator to finalize the details. Ji Woo. That negotiator is you. Congratulations on your promotion. Ji Woo stared at the message from junior diplomat, stranded during Earth's silence, to chief negotiator for humanity's independence. Her life had changed as dramatically as the galaxy itself. Counselor Yara approached her after the session ended. I owe you an apology, the avian counselor said quietly. I should have fought harder against the Resource Regulation Act. I knew it was wrong. You voted against it. Ji Woo replied. That took courage. Not enough courage, Yara said sadly. I should have done more. I should have warned you what some counselors were planning. You are warning us now, Ji Woo said. By supporting our independence, that matters. Yara's crest feathers rose in what Ji Woo had learned was a gesture of appreciation. I have been appointed the new council leader, Yara said. My first official act was to repeal the Resource Regulation Act and open an investigation into Operation Human Containment. Will anyone be held accountable? Ji Woo asked. Zormeth has resigned in disgrace, Yara replied. Several others have been removed from military command positions, but the real accountability is in ensuring this never happens again. She gestured to the chamber around them. We are restructuring the entire council, Yara explained. No more senior and junior members. All species will have equal voting rights and equal representation. Even the newest members? Ji Woo asked. Especially them, Yara confirmed. We are also establishing an independent oversight committee to review all legislation for discriminatory practices humanities. Experience exposed flaws in our system that we can no longer ignore. Ji Woo felt something unfamiliar. Hope. What about reparations? She asked. Your economist's calculations were accurate, Yara said. We have been systematically underpaying for human resources for decades. The Council has agreed to compensate through technology sharing and direct economic support. Technology sharing? Ji Woo raised an eyebrow. Human fusion drive technology in exchange for our advances in biological sciences, Yara explained. Our medical techniques could extend human lifespans significantly. Your propulsion systems could revolutionize our commercial fleet. Mutual benefit, Ji Woo said softly, as it should have been from the beginning. Yara agreed. Meanwhile, in Earth orbit, Admiral Seo Yan stood on the bridge of her flagship Indomitable, watching construction crews work on the newest vessels. The fleet had grown to 2,500 ships now, with more being completed every week, but production was beginning to slow. They didn't need an invasion force, they needed a defense force. And they had built one. Captain Hyan Woo approached, his expression thoughtful. Admiral, we have received a request from the Council, he said. They are asking permission to tour one of our shipyards. Who made the request? Seo Yan asked. Commander Felix, Hyan Woo replied. The feline officer who led their investigation fleet. Seo Yan considered Thistelix had been professional during the confrontation, and his report to the Council had been accurate and fair. Approve it, she decided. But make it clear, this is a gesture of good faith, not a requirement. Understood, Hyan Woo said. Then hesitated. Admiral, do you think they will honor the agreement? Seo Yan looked out at the vast fleet surrounding Earth. They will, she said confidently, because they understand now that the alternative is unacceptable. 3 days later, Commander Thelix arrived aboard a small diplomatic vessel. Admiral Se Yin met him personally at the docking bay. Commander, she greeted him with a formal nod. Admiral, Thelix replied. His feline features neutral, but his eyes curious. Thank you for allowing this visit. You were honest in your report to the Council, Se Yin said as they walked. That honesty prevented a war. I can allow a tour. She led him through the massive orbital shipyard construction bays the size of small moons, each one producing vessels that dwarfed Council dreadnoughts, automated assembly systems that could build a warship in weeks, instead of years. Fusion reactors that generated enough power to light a planet. Elix absorbed it all in silence, finally, standing before a nearly completed carrier. He spoke. I'm glad we did not fight, he said quietly. So am I, Seo Yin replied. We would have lost, Felix continued. Badly. Yes, the Admiral agreed. But victory would have cost us too. Every war does. Even the ones you win. Felix turned to face her. Is this really just for defense? He asked. This much power you could conquer half the galaxy. We could, CO Yuran acknowledged. But we won't. Humanity didn't build this fleet for conquest. Commander, we built it so no one could ever threaten us again. And if someone does? Felix asked. The Admiral's expression hardened. Then they will learn the same lesson the Council learned, she said. That underestimating humanity is a mistake you only make once. They stood in silence for a moment. What happens now? Felix asked. Where do we go from here? That depends on you, CO Yeon replied. We are willing to be partners with the Council, true partners. Equals working toward mutual benefit, but we will never again accept being treated as subordinates. Counselor Yara is committed to that vision, Felix said. She's restructuring everything. Then there is hope, Cyan said as Felix prepared to depart. He paused. Why did you show me all of this? He asked. You could have hidden your full capabilities. Because we want you to understand, the Admiral replied. This is not a bluff or a temporary show of force. This is permanent. Humanity has changed. And the galaxy needs to adapt. Felix nodded slowly. I think it already has, he said in the Council station. Trade negotiations resumed carefully at first, with both sides wary of missteps, but gradually. Trust began to rebuild. Kex, the reptilian trader, was among the first to re-establish commercial ties. His ships brought rare metals from human mines at fair market prices, exported them throughout the galaxy at premium rates. You are profiting considerably from this, Ji Woo observed during one of their meetings. Of course, Kex replied, his scales gleaming with satisfaction. But so are your miners. Fair trade benefits everyone. You invested in humanity early, Ji Woo said. When others doubted us, I saw potential, Kex admitted. And I was right to trust my instincts. Thank you, Ji Woo said, for warning me about the fleet, for being a friend when we had few. Kex's forked tongue flicked thoughtfully. Humans make good friends, he said. But terrible enemies. I prefer the former. 3 months after Earth's independence, President Park addressed the galaxy again, but this time, her message was one of cooperation rather than confrontation. Humanity spent 6 months preparing for conflict, she said. But we would prefer to spend the next 6 years building something better. Behind her, holographic displays showed proposed joint project space stations that would serve as neutral meeting grounds, research facilities where humans and aliens could work together on scientific advances, trade hubs designed to benefit all species equally. We are not asking to rejoin the Council, Park explained, but we are open to alliance, to partnership built on mutual respect and shared goals. The response was overwhelming. 17 species immediately requested formal alliance agreements with human territories. Trade applications flooded Earth's diplomatic channels. Research institutions competed to collaborate with human scientists. Galaxy had learned its lesson. Humanity was no longer the convenient labor force to be exploited. They were equals to be respected and potential partners worth cultivating. Ji Woo found herself working 18-hour days negotiating agreements, but unlike her previous work as a junior diplomat, now she negotiated from a position of strength. We need fair compensation, she would say, and species would agree, knowing the alternative was no access to human goods at all. We want equal decision-making authority in joint projects, she would insist, and partners would accept. Understanding that human cooperation was worth the shared power. One evening, after a particularly long negotiation session, she stood at the observation deck overlooking the station's main plaza. Yara joined her. The counselor's wings folded peacefully. How does it feel? Yara asked. Reshaping the galaxy? Exhausting, Ji Woo admitted, then smiled. but satisfying. We are building something real now. Something based on honesty. Your fleet helped with that, Yara noted, gesturing at the distant stars where Earth's warships patrolled trade routes. The fleet proved we couldn't be pushed around. Ji Woo agreed, but it is